Dan Perry here with another Dan on Tech Active Directory video for Northeast State Community College. There is really no practical limit to how many groups you can have. You can have about 4 billion objects in Active Directory. I don't think you'll ever get near that, but you can have as many users and objects and groups up till that limit. So you're never going to run out of groups. You can place your groups anywhere you want. And there's a lot of different philosophies in placement of groups. A lot of people will place the group inside the same organizational unit that most of the members will be in. So if I created an OU1 group that had all those members, I would put it in the OU1 organizational unit. And that works well. But when you have groups that span OUs, management groups, executive groups, groups that have membership in a lot of OUs, where do you put them? Well, again, you could stick them in one of those OUs and that would be perfectly fine. But if you need to find that group to modify it, well, maybe it's a little tougher to do. So one of the philosophies and one of the things I like to do is have an organizational unit called groups. Now, in a very large organization, you may have more than one group OU, maybe for different locations, maybe for different major departments. If you had 10,000 employees, you may have very large departments, and you might have a groups folder or groups OU to put the group membership in for each of those. But I'm going to have a groups one, and I can either right click here, I can right click in this window, I can go up to action and new, any of those ways to create a new group. I'm going to right click, come down to new and say group instead of user. Then I have the option, is this a security or distribution group? Were I to change it to distribution, then that really becomes an email list. But we're dealing with security groups, and it defaults to global. This first group I'm going to create is a domain local group. Now, I suggest naming the group in such a way that you see the group name and you know exactly what it's doing. So if I call this OU1-file share, that name really implies that this is a group for sharing files. Maybe I create another one. So now go new and group. I need to pay attention when I'm doing things. This will be a global group. I'll just call it user this time so there's not a name conflict. So now I've got the group and the little icon of two people tell me this is a group. Right now, none of these groups, neither of these groups has any users in it. So there's a couple of ways I can add users. There's actually a lot of ways. If I'm doing it through the GUI, if I right click on the group and say add to group, then I can go in and I can type the user I want to add. User 01. So if I go here to my organizational unit 1, now let me go back. Remember, this is OU1-user is the name of the group. I can select one or more using my shift key, user, right click, add to group, type the name of the group. I can do a check names and it found it okay. And now it's added to the group, and if I look at the properties, right click, properties, and go to member of, it says that in addition to the default group domain users, this user is a member of OU1 user group. If I go back and look at the OU1 user group, come down and look to properties and go to members, you can see both of those users are members of that group. So I can add it that way. There are other ways to add it. I can add it direct from the groups, or I could go to the administrative tools and the Active Directory Administrative Center. And this is an update to the old Active Directory users and computers that we were using. This Administrative Center gives us just a new interface to do essentially the same things we were doing before. And if I look at my domain, I have all my groups here. OU123, my groups group. If I double click on it, I can see what's in that. I've got that one OU that I created by mistake. I've got my two groups. I could add another group here. Under groups, I can do new, create users groups. Under, say, a group, this group, if I double click on it, I've got all the properties of the group, the members, and I can add members. Or I'm sorry, I was at members of. I could add members. So I can control and do all that here. Now, what I'm going to go back and do is I am going to make this user group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this user group that has my O1 users, and I'm going to add it to another group. Now, if I remember the group name, I can do there. If I remember what it starts with, I could use the advanced. I don't remember the name, but I know, or I think it starts with OU. So if I check names, it brings up matches, and it was OU1 file share, so I'll click on it. The little underline says it's been checked and it's valid. Click OK. OK again, and it is now a member of the OU1 file share. So any permissions I give to the OU1 file share group will trickle down to the OU1 user group, so all the users in that group will get those permissions.
Thank you for watching this Dan on Tech video for Northeast State Community College. Please subscribe to this playlist so you don't miss future videos.